So I'm finishing up getting the Orkjet assembled, and as I always do, I'm leaving some pieces off so that it will aid in the finishing of the model. And one of them that I'm leaving off is the exhaust nozzle for the jet. Now, the way they designed it was there's actually, this is a nozzle for one of the versions, and this is a nozzle for the other. And it's got this little gap back here where you stick that in, and depending on which one you're building, you pick one or the other. I decided, not that it was my idea originally, I was looking at some videos on YouTube and saw, I don't remember who it was, but saw one creator that decided to use both of them, and he just stacked them together, and it works just fine. And plug it in like that. So I think it looks a little cooler like that. Plus, there's a seam up under here, and it does a pretty good job of hiding that. So I won't even worry about that seam up there now because of that. Because I figure if you're picking up a model and looking that close, you're not examining that model for details. You're examining that model for flaws, which I think is a little sometimes disingenuous, going on a rabbit chase. When I used to be in an IPMS club, for a while I was president of the IPMS club and handled some of our contests and things like that. And one of the things I always looked for, we had a judging call. We would ask people to volunteer to judge. And I would talk to people about the judging process, and people whose motivation seemed to be primarily to look at the models to seek out flaws, I normally said, we don't need your help. Because yes, if you're doing judging and flaws are something to be considered, then yes, you look for the flaws. But if your primary purpose is to find flaws, you will find flaws on every model. I remember one time a fella challenged me, and when I told him I didn't want him judging, and I said, every model has flaws. He said, mine don't. And I said, okay, come show me one of your models. I picked that thing apart. Oh my gosh. The horizontal stabilizers were not parallel with each other. They were slightly canted, one slightly up, one slightly down. The dihedral of the wings was not equal. You could look at it from the front and see that one wingtip was a little higher than the other. The rake of the landing gear was different. He had a little seam along the front of the front leading edge of the wing that he had missed. There was the remnants of a thumbprint in the paint that you could see he tried to correct but didn't fully do it. And I mean, I just sat there and I just kept going on and on and on and on. And he finally said, well, you're just deliberately looking for flaws. So I'm like, do you see my point? I still didn't let him judge because he never did learn his lesson, but it's one of the reasons I'm no longer in IPMS. Anyway, I know that was a sidebar, but you know me, I'm going to ramble. Anyway, I wanted it to be a little different than just the one nozzle, so I used both of them. But you can see, I don't know if it'll show up. There we go. Yeah, you can see right through it, which, I mean, again, really is not. You're going to look in there and you're going to see once everything's filled in, it's just going to be black nothingness. But sometimes even then, I think it'd be fun to see if I can find something to plug that up. Now, I could have just plugged it up with a piece of plastic card, because really, you're not going to see anything in there. It's really not going to show unless I do something to make it show. But it kind of became a quest. It's not the I know it's there kind of thing. It was more of a quest to go, I wonder what's the coolest part I can find to fill that might actually work. So I started looking through my bits box. And if you've built Warhammer, you know that a bits box will get crowded really quick because most kits come with loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of extra parts. There's times that I have to throwaway parts, because I'm like, you know, if you're building Imperial Guard stuff, how many searchlights do you really need? You know, so anyway, I found this in the bits box, and I have no idea what it was from, what it was for. It looks like something that would have been mounted on the surface of something and something else stuck down into it, maybe a searchlight. But I started looking at that and I thought, wait a minute, that with a little modification might fit. And while it's almost impossible to see, and I don't know if I can get a camera angle that will show it, if I paint this a lighter color, say silver, and just do some washes in there, it might be kind of a little hidden detail that if somebody looks, they'll go, oh, look at there. You can see down in there. So I thought, let me see if I can do this. So sometimes that's the fun of, because I actually, and again, rabbit trail, I had fun just sitting there digging through the bits box, the spare parts box. And I've got a little plastic cabinet that has little slide out drawers, and I just got loads and loads of spare parts in there. Most of them from 40K, although a few are from, I still have some Gundam parts and some Maschinen Krieger parts. I keep those in there figuring who knows where I may use those. But it was fun to just find little things and try, okay, would this work? Would that work? Finding other things in there that I didn't know I had. I'm like, oh, I need to remember that, knowing that fully well in 10 minutes I will forget that I actually found that part. But I settled on this because, I don't know, it just looks the part to me. You look down in there, there's detail. That's the main things. But this has to fit in here. So I can't have the part that I glue on there be bigger, much bigger than this hole. Now I could clear out that hole a little bit, but I don't want to have to do too much of that. So I want something that will fit mostly without much modification of this. So first of all, when I try to test fit this, I see that obviously this outer edge around here is going to need to go. So for that, I'm going to pull out my nippers. Now I'm not going to use my good Tamiya nippers. I'm going to use these old ones that have been around forever that I use for all sorts of stuff, because this is the stuff that I use for very rough cuts. So let me get all of this cut off of here. All right, now I've got that cut off like that, but you see it's left some fairly rough edges, and to make sure that it can fit in there, I'm going to take my just Tamiya file and I'm going to roughly sand that down. I'm not worried if this is a real precise sanding job. I just want it to be smooth, and if it makes this, the circle of this circumference of this smaller, that's fine, because I've got really the only part that's going to show is the central part. This is just going to be the part that I glue. So let me get this sanded down a little bit with my handy dandy sanding stick. All right, I got that sanded down, and the surefire way to test if I glue this on here, that it will fit in here, and only do this if you know you can recover from it. If these were not left open, I would not want to do this, but the way I can make sure that this will work is I put it right here and drop it in. Look at that. That way I know it will fit when I glue it on here. Now, a test fit shows, though, that there's a little bit of a gap there. Now, that's not really too much of a problem, but again, I don't think you can see it, but when I look through there, there's a little bit of light streaming in. So that gap is caused by that bolt, those bolt details. So what I'm going to do now is very carefully, we'll do Elmer Fudd careful, very carefully. And I'm just going to trim those off like that. All right, so now I've trimmed those details off. And when I first did a test fit, it still had more of a gap than I wanted. And I'm looking at this going, wait a minute, I just cut that down and I did some sanding on it, how could there be a gap? And then I remembered, whenever you mate two surfaces together, there's two surfaces. So I looked at it and realized that there was kind of an edge where I glued these parts together. So I just took this, just did some circular sanding, and now, bam, that fits exactly like I want. Now, if I would have thought about this ahead of time, what I would have done is I would have put in some kind of backing there so that I could have glued this in and it would stay right there, and then I could just put this over it. And that would have allowed me to paint it separately and do a wash in it and all of that so that it would be seen. Now, I didn't think about doing that, and I don't know that I'm really seeing trying to stick stuff in there to make this work be that much fun. Because remember, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. What will be simple, and thus sometimes simple is fun, is I'll just leave this off. And I'll paint this up however I'm going to paint it up. And if you're looking at that seam line, that's going to be the one against the top, so don't matter. But I'll leave that off, leave this off. I'll paint it separately and get the wash in there, and I'll use a real bright silver or something like that so that it will show up, and I'll paint the inside of this, and that way I can reach it from both sides with a paintbrush to get in there. And all I'll do here is just go in with some silver and just add some Nuln Oil or something like that. And then when I'm ready to glue it on, then I can just take this, glue it in place right there, glue this on right here, and when you look in, you won't see just a void. You'll see whatever this part is. And again, I have no idea what this was, but I'm glad I had it in my bits box. Now, one of the things that I'm looking forward to with regards to painting and weathering this model is trying to incorporate some orc lore into it. You know, with Warhammer 40K, or if you didn't know, or maybe you didn't, whatever, just talk, John. There's quite a bit of lore with Warhammer 40K. You don't have to know it to play the game. You certainly don't have to know it to build the models. You can just build it like you see it on the box or build it however you want. But sometimes it makes it fun to know the lore. And while I don't play the game, I have found that sometimes when I'm sitting here working and I'm not filming, I like finding podcasts or videos that just talk about the lore. Now, I don't know whether they're reading from a book or something else. I have no idea. But a few weeks back, and I can't find the doggone link to it. I wish I would have marked it down. There was, it was like maybe 2 hours long. It was a very long piece on a big giant orc spaceship that crashed onto a planet, and talking about how this culture, there were survivors, and they started using bits of the ship to build cities, and how they started organizing themselves, and they were there for many generations, and each generation would try and use the parts to build a ship to get off the planet. And it just talked about how this orc society, the different players in it and the different, levels of orc society, and like apparently they use their teeth for money. I mean, who knows? But I thought it was really interesting that one of the things they talked about was when they were trying to build this ship to get off the planet, that there were all these competing factions that would do their own things. So one group of guys would go work on it and they would do their own thing, and then some other guys would come back later to work on it, and they would change everything and do it. So it was like just continually growing into this thing that, just nobody knew if it would work, and but it was just constantly being changed, and there were some people who had one way of doing it and some people who had another, and it was just it's one of those things that if you'd have told me back when I was building aircraft that, hey, you would sit there for 2 hours listening to something called orcs and their lore, I'd go, you're crazy. I'm a proper aircraft modeler. we have a certain dignity to us. um, I'm a card-carrying member of the IPMS USA, thank you. But I started thinking, wouldn't it be funny to fun to paint this up, weather this up? But really, I'm thinking about the painting to think, okay, in terms of that lore, how would it look if you had one group painting it one way one day and another group painting it the other way? What would it end up looking like? So when I paint this thing, I'm going to try and work that in. But the other part of orc lore that I found out about is I don't know if this is a common phrase around the rest of the world. In the South, we have a phrase where we talk about something being duct tape and baling wire, meaning it's just very slapped together with very low-tech tools, you know. You've heard the saying that, you know, if something moves and it's not supposed to, you use duct tape. And if it doesn't move and it's supposed to, you use WD-40, and that's all you need. So to kind of take that duct tape and baling wire approach to get stuff rigged up, I thought it would be kind of neat to just put a couple, because you see they've got these wires already molded into the engine back there, just in a few places, and got some wiring. I thought it would be fun to add some additional wiring, but this just hanging loose or broken. And I thought that would just kind of fit with the orc aesthetic. I was even thinking of like taking one and just running it out of here, you know, back over into here. Like, okay, we can't figure out any other way to do this, so we're just going to do it this way. So I thought that would be kind of cool to try. So let me get started on that. Now, normally when I'm trying to do wiring, you know, if I'm wiring up a cockpit or an engine, you know, I like to use this resin solder, not resin, solder, rosin. I saw that rosin in my brain, red resin. Anyway, this solder is really good because it's very soft, you can bend it, you can get it around curves and all of that. It would be good to use if it were going to be something that I had it conform to the surface and it was going to be glued completely. But because I want some of this to hang loose or to look like it's, you know, hanging down or something like that, I don't want to use this, because if somebody buys it and they start pushing at it or something like that, it's very likely that movement, because like when you paint this, if you start moving it around, the paint chips off. So what I'm going to use instead is this brass wire, which is about the same thickness. That's the thickness I prefer. This is 0.025 inches or 0.64 millimeters. This is 0.22 inches, so they're very close. But this is a little more stiff, so you can make it look like it's wrinkled up or bending or whatever, but it's going to be much more rigid and stick out much better. Now, if I have stuff that's just hanging loose, I'm going to have to be real careful about how I do that. I'll probably put a drop of super glue on the end to make it a little bulkier, because this stuff, and I found this out the hard way, this stuff will stick into your finger, and it will stick far into your finger if you hit it hard enough. But what I'm thinking of doing is just drilling in some holes and putting it in a few places with some super glue and getting those on there. So let me get the stuff prepared and take it from there. All right, I'm going to use this super glue thick. When I'm doing stuff like this, I generally like to use the thick super glue so it doesn't run everywhere. And I put it on this kitchen tile here, and you can tell I was really prepared. I usually apply it with a toothpick. You can use a piece of metal wire or something like that, but I just find a toothpick is quick and easy. When you pour out your super glue, what I do when I pour out my super glue is I wipe the tip off, usually on my t-shirt, and once I wipe it off, I give it some hammers like that on the desk, and then I leave it. And then once I leave it, I'll let it sit there, and the stuff will drain back in, and I can wait 15 minutes or so, and then I'll just put the lid back on and it'll be good to go. Because like this puddle of super glue here, if I just leave it there, it will very likely be somewhat sticky tomorrow morning. Now, if I take this and just stir it around a little bit, provide just a little bit of pressure, stuff like that, all of a sudden it's going to want to dry. So keep that in mind also, because when I'm done, I will clean that up. I'll get a piece of paper towel and clean it up and then scrape away the excess so it's clean. Because if it's me, if I leave this sitting on the desk, I will take this model and set it right in there and then come in the morning and it will be glued to the tile and paratrooper words will ensue. And I try to no longer use paratrooper words, so we'll avoid that. Anyway, I'm going to take a piece of wire. Now what I want to do, like I said, I want to put it in here and then just have it kind of, I don't want it to be flapping too loose, but I want it to kind of go down and then go in here at the bottom and just kind of be kind of an obvious, something that's jury-rigged like that. So what I'm going to do is eyeball that, and I think I'm going to cut it right here. So I'm going to go back to these old cutters that I've seen better days, and I'm going to cut this piece of wire just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm just going to dip it into my super glue. I'm going to stick it right in there. And then I'm going to grab I should have already had this out. I'm going to grab my super glue accelerator. This is from Bob Smith Industries. Bob Smith is a good guy. He's the kind of fellow you want in industry. Anyway, I'm just going to take that. I don't spray it on. I just take that little thing and I just touch it there like that. Now, see, this is why super glue infuriates me. When you want it to dry immediately, even with accelerator, it don't do it. When you don't want it to dry immediately and you're not using accelerator, it does. All right, so let's put a little more in here. And what I can do is I can paint that black like they've, stuffed it full of something so that it's, some kind of seal that goes in there. That's what we'll pretend. Because remember, this is all made up stuff anyway. Now what I'll do is I will take my handy dandy tweezers and I will take this and I will bend this around like that. I hope this is coming into focus. If it's not, I apologize. If it's not, then just pretend that you see what I'm doing. And then see how I've got it like that. Now all I'm going to do is just take that and push that in there just like that. Now I can just simply take this and I'll lift it up just a little, hold it with my thumb to get it out of the way, and then I'm going to put some super glue right at the bottom of this little opening, right there. Just like that. Just need just enough to hold this in. Then I'll push that back in and I'll hold it down so that it's like that. Then I'll take my super glue accelerator. I think I need more. I think I'm about out of super glue accelerators, the problem. Yeah, that's probably what it is. It's not very much down in there. There we go. Got a good blob of it. That'll do it. Now I've got that wire in there, and if I want to, I can put a few little wrinkles in there to, make it look like that. But I think that'll be good enough to look like it's, like it's something that they rigged up at the last minute. And I can paint over that. Now, what I'll use is, I don't know I have it somewhere around here, but I've got some primer from VMS that you put on to metal parts, and it sticks like nobody's business. And then once you put that on there, you can paint over it, and stuff generally won't chip off. Where do I have that? Oh, well, you don't want me to hang around and find it. I know I'm kind of disoriented this afternoon. Worked in the yard all morning and I'm tired. But anyway, just adding a few little details like that. I may do one more on the other side or down here on the bottom, maybe some wires running from here to there, you know, something like that. Maybe just something odd that's, you know, goes from, you know, one place to another or something like that. And, you know, that makes you go, why is that even there? Well, who knows? It's an ORC vehicle. Only the orcs know. But look at there, that super glue accelerator flowed all the way over there. But anyway, this is when I'm sitting around working on preparing a model for any kind of video. This is the stuff that I just think about. And sometimes I test stuff out and never actually use it. Sometimes I'll do it and I'll go, nah, I just don't want to do that. You know, but other times I'm like, oh, this will be fun. And I think especially because of the aesthetic of the ORC vehicles that, and thank you, Nikki, for that tip that you gave me, that pretty much anything goes. That's kind of freed me up, because now I've added these extra guns in here that for this particular version, I guess you'd say, that I'm building would not normally be on there. Normally there would just be 2 big bombs here, but I'm gonna have 2 big bombs here, 2 medium-sized bombs here, and rockets under the wings. If I would have thought about it ahead of time, I wouldn't have put the tail planes on like this, and I would have put the one on here that had the turret in back, and then I'd had the turret up here pointing, you know, and I'd have done more guns here. I could have put every gun in the box on this thing, which would have been kind of cool. But anyway, I'm looking forward to this, because like I've said, this is going to be a little bit of, you know, like when I do the video of painting it, I think I'm going to title it something along the lines of how to paint orky stuff, and do that. But then I'll have a video that's about using oils, another one about, you know, making rust, another one about, you know, maybe fluid stains or something like that, and do some technique focused ones. And then at the end, just kind of bring it all together and see what I end up with. So who knows? May get 3, 4 videos out of this. May get 6 or 7. I think a lot of it will depend on my enthusiasm for, and yes, I'm rambling, I know, will depend on my enthusiasm for this project versus if any other shiny object comes up between now and then. Like, I'm really enjoying building this tank. I'm almost finished with it. I just got to do the weathering, the chipping and the weathering. And I'm really enjoying it. But because I've started on this, that one's lost a little bit of its shine, and I'm so excited about this one. It's like I'm starting to hurry through that one so that I can get to this one. And who knows, by the time I get about 2/3 done with this one, I may find something else that I'm like, oh, let me just hurry through this one so I can get to the next one. But it's fun. That's the thing. That's the thing. I've actually gotten some comments in videos, and I, just in case you ever wondered, I do sometimes delete comments. It's not that I don't want critical comments. If somebody leaves a critical comment, like, hey, there was one that I did the video, I think it was on airbrushing future, and somebody said, hey, you know, I mean, they were not real kind about it. They said, you know, hey, you didn't talk about cleaning it up. And I don't remember, it's been so long since I made it. But I was like, oh, wow, I should have done that. If I get criticism that I think, okay, that's it may not be polite criticism, but it's warranted, I just leave it. But like the other day, somebody left a comment on one of my videos that said, you talk too much in your videos. And then a little while later, another one came in and they said, you're still talking too much in your videos. And I found out that if I answer comments, it emails the person my answer, but then I can delete it. So I've started using that to my advantage. So on the second one, I just emailed him and I said, look, dude, this is me. If you don't want, you guys know this, if you don't want to watch long video with old grumpy guy rambling, all those things, then I'm not the guy to watch. You know, if you want 10 minutes of, you know, some kind of silliness, there's plenty of people who do silliness for 10 minutes and you'll be entertained and you can move on. That's not me. And I said, so, you know, if you don't like it, well, move on. If you've ever seen that movie Tombstone, you know, there's a scene where the Earps are moving out of town and they're all in the wagon and they pull up and they're sitting there and the guy that was playing the leader of the bad guys, I think his name is Booth Powers or Powers Booth or something like that. But he pulls up and he says, you know, something like, okay, well, we're leaving town. And the guy looks at him and just says, well, bye. So I told the guy, hey, if you're not going to watch my videos, well, bye. I don't even know why I went on this minor rant now, and I don't want to replay the video back to find out. But anyway, this is the stuff I think about. This is me rambling. You guys know I'm not sophisticated. I never will be. I've made peace with the fact that you know, I do videos that I love, and a few people watch them, and they tell me it helps them, and that's just good enough. No longer worrying about how many people look at it, how many subs I get, and stuff like that. So, whatever my point was earlier, I've already forgotten. So, you can go back and watch it and maybe remind me what my point was, and then maybe I can put it in text below. Anyway, I'm going to put a few more wires on this, and then I'm going to go take a nap, because that's what Saturday afternoons are good for, good nap. So I hope wherever you are, whenever you're watching this, that you're doing something enjoyable and having a good time. And thank you so much for being a patron. It means a whole lot to me, and I'm grateful. So happy day to you, friends. Bye-bye.